One day you wake up and realize that everything around you is an illusion. That every moment, every sensation, every thought you have ever had is not real. It sounds like the plot of a science fiction movie, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this idea that you do not exist has been explored by philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual masters throughout the centuries? Let's start with a simple thought experiment. Close your eyes and ask yourself, who am I? The answer might seem obvious. You are you, a person with a name, a history, a series of experiences. But as you delve deeper into this question, you begin to realize something intriguing. All these characteristics you associate with you are just narratives, stories you tell yourself. Your name, your profession, your likes and dislikes are all labels you use to define your identity. Now, let's take a step further. Think about your thoughts and feelings. Are they constant? Or do they change over time? Of course they change. What you thought and felt 10 years ago is probably quite different from what you think and feel today. So, if your thoughts and feelings change, do they really define who you are? This line of thinking leads us to one of the oldest and most profound philosophies, Buddhism. Buddha taught that the idea of a permanent and immutable self is an illusion. He called this illusion anatta, or non-self. According to Buddha, our true nature is beyond any fixed identity. We are constantly in flux, like a river that is never the same from one moment to the next. This idea is not exclusive to Buddhism. In the West, the Greek philosopher Heraclitus also believed that no one steps into the same river twice, because both the river and the person are in constant change. Heraclitus argued that the only constant in life is change. But what does this mean for you? If you are not your thoughts, nor your feelings, nor your stories, who are you really? This question is at the heart of many spiritual traditions. In Hinduism, the answer can be found in the concept of Atman, or the true self, which is identical to Brahman, the ultimate reality. In Christian mysticism, we find the idea that our true essence is a divine spark, part of a greater whole. And in modern psychology, this question is also explored. Carl Jung, one of the pioneers of analytical psychology, spoke about the self, a totality that transcends the ego. For Jung, the ego is just the tip of the iceberg, while the self is the totality of our being, including the conscious and the unconscious. If the self you believe to be is not real, then what is it? If our identity is a construct, what about the world around us? Is it as solid as it seems? Or is it also wrapped in layers of illusion? Let's go back in time to ancient Greece, where we find Plato and his famous allegory of the cave. Imagine people chained in a cave, forced to look at a wall from birth. Behind them, a fire projects shadows on the wall, and these shadows are all they know of the world. To these prisoners, the shadows are reality. They do not know that there is an entire world outside the cave, much richer and more complex than the shadows they see. Plato used this allegory to illustrate his theory of forms. He believed that the world we perceive through the senses is just a shadow of the true reality, which is immutable and eternal. According to Plato, to know the truth, we need to go beyond appearances and access the world of forms, where the essence of all things resides. Centuries later in the East, the concept of illusion was similarly explored through Hindu philosophy. The term Maya refers to the veil of illusion that prevents us from seeing the ultimate reality. According to Hinduism, The material world is a creation of Maya, an illusion that deceives us into believing we are separate beings living in a physical universe. The true reality is Brahman, the infinite and eternal consciousness that permeates everything. But how do these ideas apply to our daily lives? Think about modern technology. With virtual reality, we can create entire worlds that seem real but are not. We put on a VR headset, and suddenly we are in a completely different place, interacting with people and objects that do not physically exist. This experience reminds us that our perception of reality can be easily manipulated. Modern physics also offers a surprising view of the nature of reality. Quantum theory, for instance, suggests that matter at its core is composed of subatomic particles that do not have a fixed location until they are observed. The famous double-slit experiment showed that particles can behave like waves and vice versa, depending on observation. This means that reality, on a fundamental level, is influenced by consciousness. These ideas are not just abstract. They have profound implications for our understanding of who we are and the world we live in. If reality is a construct, then our experience of it is shaped by our mind. This leads us to another intriguing question. If reality is a construct of the mind, to what extent can we alter it through consciousness? In the field of psychology, this question is explored through the practice of visualization and meditation. Studies have shown that the mind has an incredible power to influence the body and the environment. Athletes, for example, use visualization to improve their performance by imagining themselves performing their actions perfectly. People who practice meditation regularly report significant changes in perception and quality of life. This leads us to a powerful conclusion. If we can change our perception and consequently our reality, then we have immense power within us. Time is something we take for granted. We measure our lives in years, months, days, and hours. We plan our activities based on the clock and the calendar. But what if time is also a construct of the mind? Let's explore this idea. Albert Einstein revolutionized our understanding of time with his theory of relativity. He demonstrated that time is not absolute. It can stretch or contract, depending on speed and gravity. In other words, time is not a universal constant, but something that can vary. This idea leads us to consider that our perception of time can be shaped by external circumstances. To illustrate this, think about the common experience of how time seems to pass faster when we are having fun and slower when we are bored. Psychologists study this phenomenon and call it the subjective perception of time. Our brains process information at different speeds, depending on our emotional state and activities. Let's delve deeper into this issue with a more extreme example. In the book Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman, there are a series of vignettes imagining different worlds, each with a unique perception of time. In one of these worlds, time is a circle, and all actions repeat indefinitely. In another, time flows backward, and people live their lives in reverse, starting with death and ending at birth. These fictional stories help us question the linear nature of time that we consider so natural. But this idea is not just science fiction. In spiritual traditions, especially Buddhism and Hinduism, we find the concept of cyclic time. These traditions teach that life is not a straight line but a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Time is seen as an ever-turning wheel, and each moment contains eternity. Theoretical physicist Julian Barbour, in his book The End of Time, proposes that time, as we perceive it, does not exist. He argues that the universe is a series of no's, moments that are not connected by a flow of time but exist independently. According to Barber, the passage of time is an illusion created by our consciousness moving from one moment to the next. But what does this mean for our daily lives? If time is a construct of the mind, we can begin to understand better the power of the present. The practice of mindfulness, which has roots in Buddhism, teaches that the only moment that truly exists is now. Past and future are creations of the mind. By focusing on the present, we can find profound peace and a greater connection to reality. Let's illustrate this with a Zen story. A monk asked the master, "What is the secret of enlightenment?" The master replied, "When I am eating, I eat. When I am walking, I walk. When I am sleeping, I sleep." The monk, confused, said, "But everyone does that. What is the secret?" The master smiled and said, "No. When you eat, you think of 1,000 other things. When you walk, you are worried about the future. When you sleep, you dream of the past. I, however, am present in everything I do. That is the secret." This story shows us that by being fully present in each moment, we transcend the illusion of time. We free ourselves from the worries of the past and the future and connect with the eternity of now. We now understand that our identity, the reality around us, and even time can be illusions. But if all this is questionable, what remains? What is the solid foundation upon which we can build our understanding of the world? The answer may lie in consciousness itself. Consciousness is the ability to be aware of oneself and the environment. But what exactly is this consciousness? To address this question, we need to look back at Eastern and Western philosophy as well as modern science. Let's start with René Descartes, the French philosopher famous for his phrase, "Cogito ergo sum," I think therefore I am. Descartes sought an indubitable foundation for knowledge and found it in consciousness itself. While all aspects of the external world could be doubted, the fact that he was thinking and therefore conscious was undeniable. For Descartes, consciousness was proof of his own existence. In the East, this idea is also central. In Advaita Vedanta, a school of Hindu philosophy, we find the concept of Atman, the true self, which is pure consciousness. The Indian sage Adi Shankaracharya taught that Atman is identical to Brahman, the ultimate reality. Through the practice of meditation and self-inquiry, practitioners are led to discover this truth for themselves. But these ideas are not only found in philosophy. Modern science, especially quantum physics, provides intriguing clues about the nature of consciousness. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and the double-slit experiment suggest that observation, or consciousness, plays a fundamental role in shaping reality. In other words, without a conscious observer, reality does not manifest in the same way. Neuroscientist David Eagleman explores the idea that our perception of reality is a construction of the brain. He argues that what we perceive as reality is actually a simulation created by our mind based on limited sensory information. The brain fills in gaps and creates a coherent narrative of the world around us. But this narrative is not reality itself. This leads us to a crucial question. If our perception of reality is a construct of the mind, what is the true nature of consciousness? Zen Buddhism offers an answer through the practice of Zazen meditation, where practitioners observe their thoughts and perceptions without clinging to them. The goal is to reach a state of pure consciousness, free from illusions and narratives. In this practice, consciousness is experienced as an infinite and serene vastness beyond any identity or form. We can illustrate this idea with a story. A disciple asked the master, "What is the Buddha mind?" The master replied, "The Buddha mind is the ordinary mind." The disciple, confused, asked, "How can the ordinary mind be the Buddha mind?" The master responded, "Because in the ordinary mind, when observed without attachment, lies the essence of enlightenment." This brings us back to our own experience. Each of us can explore the nature of consciousness directly through meditation and self-observation. By doing so, we begin to see beyond the illusions of identity, external reality, and time. We discover that at our core, we are pure consciousness, an infinite presence that witnesses all experiences without being affected by them. So far, we have questioned the reality of our identity, the world around us, time, and consciousness itself. But how can we apply these ideas in practice? How can we truly experience the truth that you do not exist in the conventional way we believe? For many, this journey begins with the practice of meditation and self-inquiry. These practices help us observe the mind and see how it constructs identity and reality. Let's explore this in more detail. In meditation, especially in the practice of mindfulness, we are invited to observe our thoughts and feelings without identifying with them. When we sit in silence and observe the mind, we begin to notice a constant flow of thoughts. Some are pleasant, others are not, but all of them share something in common. They are temporary and constantly changing. A classic example used by meditation masters is to compare the mind to a clear sky and thoughts to clouds. The clouds come and go, changing shape and intensity, but the sky remains unchanged. Similarly, our consciousness is like the sky, always present and immutable, while our thoughts and feelings are like clouds, transient and insubstantial. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught that by observing our thoughts without clinging to them, we can begin to see the truth that we are not these thoughts. They are merely phenomena that arise in the mind. This perception is a crucial step in the deconstruction of the self. But meditation is just one tool. Another powerful approach is self-inquiry, popularized by the Indian sage Ramana Maharshi. He taught a simple yet profound practice, repeatedly asking, "Who am I?" Instead of seeking intellectual answers, this question is used to direct attention inward, questioning the origin of the I. The practice of self-inquiry can lead to profound insights into the nature of identity. When we investigate who we truly are, we realize that all answers are just labels and concepts. The true I cannot be found in any of these labels because it is beyond them. Ramana Maharshi said that by following this inquiry to the end, we discover that the separate I does not exist. What remains is pure consciousness, the silent presence that is always here. Let's illustrate this practice with a story from the life of Ramana Maharshi. At the age of 16, he had a profound experience of self-realization. Sitting in his room, he was overcome by the fear of death. Instead of fleeing from this fear, he decided to face it directly. He lay down on the floor and began to imagine that he was dying. He asked himself, "What happens when the body dies? Who am I that perceives this?" Through this investigation, he realized that his body and mind were merely objects of perception, not the true essence of who he was. He experienced a deep peace and freedom, realizing that his true nature was infinite and immortal consciousness. This realization transformed his life and became the foundation of his teachings. He spent the rest of his days helping others discover this same truth through the practice of self-inquiry. These practices may seem challenging at first, but with patience and persistence, they can lead to a deep and transformative understanding of our true nature. When we begin to see through the illusions of the mind, we discover that the I we believe to be real is not. Instead, we find a vast and serene consciousness beyond any identity or form. In many spiritual traditions, the idea of separation is seen as the greatest illusion. Believing that we are separate individuals, disconnected from each other and the universe, is the root of suffering. The truth, these traditions say, is that we are all interconnected parts of a single whole. In Hinduism, this concept is encapsulated in the idea of Tat Tavam Asi, you are that. This phrase, found in the Upanishads, means that the essence of the individual, Atman, is identical to the essence of the universe, Brahman. To understand this, let's use the metaphor of the wave and the ocean. Each wave may appear separate, with its own shape and movement, but in reality, all waves are manifestations of the same ocean. Similarly, each of us may seem like a separate individual, but we are all manifestations of the same universal consciousness. This vision of unity is also central in Buddhism. The Buddha taught the interdependence of all things through the concept of pratityasamutpada, or dependent origination. This means that nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in relation to everything else. Every being, every event is interconnected. There is no separate I. There is only a continuous flow of interactions and interrelations. Modern physics, interestingly, reaches similar conclusions. The principle of non-locality in quantum physics suggests that particles can be instantly connected, regardless of the distance between them. This challenges our classical understanding of separation and suggests a profound level of interconnection in the universe. Let's explore this through a story. Many years ago in India, there lived a woman named Amma, known as the Hugging Saint. Amma traveled the world hugging millions of people, offering them love and compassion. For her, every person was a manifestation of the divine. When she hugged someone, she saw beyond the individual identity and recognized the divine essence in everyone. Amma said that by hugging others, we embrace ourselves, for there is no real separation. Her example is a powerful reminder that the practice of compassion can lead us to the realization of unity. When we open our hearts and connect deeply with others, we experience the truth that you do not exist as a separate being. Instead, we are all parts of a greater whole, interconnected in a web of life. This realization has profound implications. By recognizing our interconnection, we change the way we relate to the world. We become more responsible, more caring, and more loving. We realize that our actions affect not only ourselves, but everyone around us. The practice of unity leads us to a life of service, where we seek the well-being of all, knowing that in doing so, we are caring for ourselves.